ಜಗದೋಧಾರನ ಆಡಿಸಿದಳೆ ಶೋಧೆ ಜಗದೋಧಾರನ.
Very warm good evening if you're in India, and whichever country you're in, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are all in. My name is Kaushik, and I will be the technical moderator per se of the session. So I'll give you a few instructions for the well-being of all. So your mic and video is muted by default. So you won't be able to talk or you won't be seen as well. So you're today we're joined by Mr. Balasubramanian, the author of Indriya Gandhigal, and fondly called as Balana by all of us in Cuckoo. He'll be the moderator of the session. So you'll either be seeing Balana's face, my face, or Thulasiraj's face, depending upon who is talking. So whoever is talking, their face will be shown to you. If you have any questions, there is a Q bar A that's on your screen. You can type it over there. So I'll be able to take the questions and present it, or Balana will be doing it as well. If there's a very pressing question that you want to ask directly, then your mics can be unmuted for one or two people, if that's a possibility and if you have time. And you would be able to talk to Thulasiraj sir directly. But all the questions have to come in Q&A by default if the mic has to be unmuted. So for those of you logging in for the first time, my video that you see right now will be on a small size on the right side of your screen, of your laptop screen if you're on a laptop. If you're on a Windows, you just have to right click and then say show controls. Once you say show controls and then you hover the mouse over my face again, over the video again, you will see a small timeline with a small broken square icon. That will be the full screen icon. So once you click on that, then the video will go full screen. If it's on a Mac, you just have to double click on the screen, if I'm not wrong, then the screen goes full size again. Right? So that's basically general technical instructions there. We are also joined here by Mr. Uday Kumar, who's also on mute, who's from the hospital. So the session will be predominantly in English. So if there are any questions in Tamil, please do feel free to type it in Tamil or Hindi, whichever language that you're comfortable with. We will try to translate it to the best of our abilities and then present the question. So there is a small introduction that Mr. Tulsi sir had mentioned in the beginning. So that is written by the founder of the Cuckoo School movement, one of the founders of the Cuckoo School movement, named Mr. Shivaraj, only known as Sivarajana for all. So that's Sivarajana's post. So the answer to the question of how did Sivarajana know is there's a school called Arachalur. He belongs to a small village called Arachalur in Tamil Nadu. So his physics sir, who was Sivarajana's mentor, had told a lot of stories about you and what has happened. That's how Sivarajana had come to know about the entire history. So the post is in Tamil. The introduction is in Tamil. So that'll be a good introduction to start with. I will read the post in Tamil and then Balana will take over the session. தமிழ்நாட்டில் நாம் எல்லோருக்கும் பொதுவான குடும்ப மருத்துவமனை என்றொன்று இருக்குமானால் அது அரவிந்த் கண் மருத்துவமனையே ஆகவே இருக்கும். அரவிந்த் கண் மருத்துவமனையின் இத்தகைய வேரூன்றலுக்கு பின் காரணமாக அமைவது எந்த அமைப்பையும் புறந்தள்ளாது அவர்களை செயலாற்றும் நிலைப்பாடு. தமிழகத்தின் நிறைய அமைப்புகளை தொடர்ச்சியாக செயல் சேவைகளின் தொய்வில்லாமல் இயங்கு வைத்தது அரவிந்த் குழுமம்தான். சொல்லப்போனால் எல்லா அமைப்புகளையும் பொதுவான வேலை திட்டத்தோடு அது ஒருங்கமைத்து ரஜினி ரசிகர் மன்றம் மற்றும் அரவிந்த் கண் மருத்துவமனை இணைந்து வழங்கும் இலவச கண் மருத்துவ முகாம் என்ற வாசகத்தை சுமந்து அறிவிப்புகள் வைக்கப்பட்டிருக்கும். பேனர்ஸ் எல்லா சமயங்களையும் பேதங்களற்று தனது நிழற்குடைக்குள் ஒன்றிணைய வைத்து அரவிந்த் நிகழ்த்திய அற்புத களமாற்றம் ஒரு பக்கம், பெந்தகோஸ்து சபையுடன் கலந்து மருத்துவ முகாம் இன்னொரு பக்கம், கோவில் நிர்வாகத்தோடு கலந்து இணைந்து மருத்துவ முகாம் இன்னொரு பக்கம், இஸ்லாமிய சேவை அமைப்புகளோடு சேர்ந்து மருத்துவ முகாம் என எந்த மக்களையும் நிராகரித்து விடவே கூடாது என்கிற தீவிரமான சமரச முன்னகர்வு. அரவிந்த் மருத்துவமனை என்றாலே எளிய மக்கள் எல்லாருக்குள் தோன்றும் ஒரு எண்ணம் உண்டு. அங்கு பணிபுரியும் அனைவருமே கிராம மக்கள் எல்லாரிடமும் காட்டுகிற கனிவான உரையாடலும் நடத்தையும் தான் அது. அரசு மருத்துவமனை போன்ற துரிகதையில் இயங்கும் மருத்துவமனை அணுகுமுறையில் கடைபிடிக்கும் அனுபவ நிதானம் நம்மை வியக்க வைப்பது. சமகாலத்தில் தமிழகத்தின் ஒவ்வொரு கிராமத்தின் கடைக்கோடி வரையிலும் மருத்துவ சேவையை கொண்டு செல்வதற்கான நிர்வாக கட்டமைப்பை கொண்டிருப்பது அரவிந்த் மட்டுமே. கண் என்றாலே அது அரவிந்த் கண் மருத்துவமனை தான் என்ற அனிச்சையாக நினைக்கிற அளவுக்கு இம்மருத்துவமனையின் அர்ப்பணிப்பு எல்லா பாமர மக்களையும் சென்றடைந்துள்ளது. எவ்வகையில் அரவிந்த் கண் மருத்துவமனை என்பது சமகால சேவை துன்பம். கிட்டத்தட்ட நம் குடும்பத்தில் யாராவது ஒருவர் அல்லது ஏதாவது ஒரு இரத்த வழி உறவு அரவிந்த் மருத்துவமனையில் ஒரு முறையாவது பரிசோதனைக்கு கொண்டவர்களாக இருக்கிறார்கள். நம் எல்லாரையும் அரவிந்த் மருத்துவமனை கரம் தொட்டிருக்கிறது. ஈரோடு, கோவை போன்ற நகரங்கள் சாதிய எண்ணம் மிக வலுவானது. நம்மாழ்வார் ஐயா அடிக்கடி படிக்காதவங்கிட்ட இருக்கிற சாதி வெளிப்படையானது, படிச்சவங்கிட்ட இருக்கிற சாதி ரொம்ப ரகசியமானது, இன்னும் நுட்பமானது என்ன சொல்வதுண்டு. அதே ஈரோடு, கோவையில் பண்ணையத்துக்கும் உழைக்கிற தலித் தொகுப்பை சேர்ந்த ஒருத்தரும் அதே பண்ணையத்தின் உரிமையாளரான முதலாளியும் ஒரே மருத்துவமனை கூடாரத்துக்குள் அமர்ந்து சிகிச்சைக்காக காத்திருப்பதை நம்மால் காண முடியும். இலவச கண் சிகிச்சை முகாம்களில் டோக்கன் வரிசைப்படி அவர்களுக்கான மருத்துவ சேவை வழங்கப்படும். சேவையின் பரவலாக்கத்தால் சாதி ஏற்றத்தாழ்வுகளை மீறிச் செல்வது என்பது கிட்டத்தட்ட ஒரு சமூக அசைவு என்றே கொள்ள வேண்டும். பச்சை நிற பருத்தி துணி ஒற்றை கண்ணை மறைத்து தொங்கு அப்பாவி முகங்களோடு அமர்ந்திருக்கும் எத்தனை முதியவர்களை நாம் நமது வாழ்வில் பார்த்திருப்போம். அத்தனை கண்களையும் ஒளியேறச் செய்து அரவிந்த் கண் மருத்துவமனையின் கொண்ட மருத்துவ சேவையில் தொகை என்பதனை முதற்படியில் வைக்காமல் சமசிகிச்சை என்பதனை பொறும்பொன்மை இலக்காக கொண்டுள்ளது. வயது முதிர்ந்து பூந்தள்ளிய கிழ மனிதர்களை கிராமத்திற்கே வந்து கண் பரிசோதனை செய்து அவசியம் இருப்பின் அவர்களை மருத்துவமனைக்கு தங்கள் வாகனத்திலேயே அழைத்து வந்து கண் அறுவை சிகிச்சை நிகழ்த்தி ஓரிரு நாட்கள் தங்க வைத்து உணவளித்து கண்ணொளி பெற்ற மனிதர்களாக்கி அவர்களை மீண்டும் அவர்களின் குடிசையில் வந்து விட்டுச் செல்லும் அரவிந்த் மருத்துவமனை என்பது ஒரு சாத்தியமடைந்த காந்திய கனவு. அரவிந்த் மருத்துவமனை நிறுவனர் டாக்டர் ஜி வெங்கடசுவாமி பாண்டிச்சேரி அன்னை அவர்களின் இறைவழி பின்தொடர்ந்தவர். உலகெங்கில் இருந்து மண் கொண்டு வந்து மிகப்பெரிய பிரார்த்தனை குவிமாடம் கட்டப்பட்டது பாண்டிச்சேரி அரவிந்தர் அன்னை ஆசிரமத்தில். ஏதோ ஒரு வகையில் அன்னை அள்ளி கை தந்த பிடிமண் மொத்தமாகவே அரவிந்த் குழுமம் தன்னை இறைப்படுத்திக் கொண்டுள்ளது. சிறுமலர் மற்றும் சுடர்வளக்குடன் கூடிய பிரார்த்தனை அறை அவர்களது எல்லா மருத்துவமனை முகப்பிலும் உள்ளது. பார்வையற்று இருள்வாழ்வில் வாழ்ந்து அரவிந்த் மருத்துவமனை மூலமாக வழியடைந்த மனிதர்களின் முதல் சாட்சி சிந்தும் கண்ணீர்தான் அந்த வேர்நீர். குக்கு நேரலை உரையாடலில் நாளை நிகழ்வில் மாலை 5 மணி அளவில் அரவிந்த் கண் மருத்துவ குழுமத்தின் நிறுவிய காரணகர்த்தாக்களில் ஒருவராகிய திரு துளசிராஜ் ரவில்லா உரையாடுகிறார். அரவிந்த் கண் மருத்துவமனை குழுமத்தின் செயல்பிரிவு இயக்குநராக பொறுப்புவிக்கிறார். சேவா மற்றும் தான அமைப்பின் நிர்வாக உறுப்பினராக இருந்தார். கண்வில்லைகள் தயாரிப்பு பிரிவான Aurolab தலைமை நிர்வாகி. அரவிந்த் கண் மருத்துவமனை குழுமத்தின் விதை முதல் விழுது வரையிலான சேவை மற்றும் வளர்ச்சி பற்றி நம்மோடு பகிர்ந்து கொள்கிறார். தோழமை உறவுகள் இணைந்து கொள்ளுங்கள். So that's the post that Sivraj Anna had written. That gives you a very, very brief of the thing. I'll also send you the post over mail to all of you that you guys can read. So now I request Balana to take over.
Yeah. Good evening to all of you in India. I'm talking to you from Dar es Salaam in Tanzania. It is 2:38, 2 hours and 38 minutes in the afternoon. I'll just give briefly a direction or a few words about what we are going to talk, and after that what Mr. Thulasiraj Ravilla is going to talk about the initiatives and the institution which has been built in Madurai. Typically worldwide, post World War II, all over the world, countries, governments started building infrastructure and focusing on welfare. That is the base. That is probably the milestone which started the modern world and its welfare economics. The governments have the largest, I would say, kind of infrastructure and funds to handle welfare. But most of the time, we find that the government's welfare schemes are a little inefficient, and they do not reach the last man in the economic pyramid. Then there is the other side where there are private organizations, business enterprises who have been taking up philanthropic activities like Tata's in India or Azim Premji, that is another Indian enterprise. So they spend a substantial amount of wealth which has been created out of their enterprise towards philanthropic activities. However, there's one sector which is not given due importance, about which people do not know much, is the what we call as the developmental sector, or where the social entrepreneurs take up what is their passion to help and support people. Now, this development sector or the social entrepreneurship sector combines the passion or efficiency of a private sector, and at the same time, it can reach more number of people at much lesser cost, like the government. Between the three options, government, private, and the developmental sector, I think developmental sector, by my personal view, is the most efficient one. Talking about Aravind Aikara saying anything would be unraveling the secret of a thriller movie, because that's a kind of work which has happened in Aravind. I have personally seen, followed, read a lot of things about Aravind Aikara, but I would rather want to listen to Mr. Thulasiraj Ravilla. We all have the good fortune of having him with us, so I request him to take over and start the presentation, sir.
Thank you, Bala. And this is really a very special and a proud privilege that I've been asked to deliver this talk. And let me see if you can get the, how do I get the share button?
1 minute. Now, check now, sir.
Thank you. I just check, Kaushik, is the slide visible?
Yes, it is visible. It is visible. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So this really is a very, what should I say, a very proud privilege that I was requested to talk to this group, which is both in India and outside India. A group that's particularly concerned about the welfare of humanity. So I've kind of sense a feeling of brotherhood as I am talking to you all. And when I listened to Kaushik read out the post by Mr. Shivaraj, one thing that struck me is that one of our challenge, or in other words, a moral responsibility, will be to continue to live up to what was mentioned in those nice words. And that is something which we in the Aravind team are extremely conscious of, recognizing that what we do is not so different, but how we do it is what makes all the difference. And I think that is something we are committed to kind of perpetuate, and that's where most of our effort and energy also goes in. So I want to talk in the next half an hour or so about the Aravind model itself, how it has gone about working. And before that, I definitely can't talk about it without talking about Dr. V, Dr. Venkataswamy, the founder of Aravind. If there is one man on whom all the misfortunes were showered, it will be Dr. V. I'll tell you what they are. And in the same token, if there is one man who has shrugged all of them and then done something which is extremely remarkable and beyond normally what would come as comes as a human endeavor, that would also be Dr. V. So in terms of hardships, he quite young in his age, when he was became a doctor and he was working in the army, and then he had this life's ambition of wanting to become obstetrics gynecologist, because he was moved by in his young days of watching young women die at deliveries. He wanted to become a gynecologist, and that time that's when the fate dealt a cruel blow of affecting him with a very acute rheumatoid arthritis. So if you look at his in this image, if you take a look at his fingers, you will find they're all crippled and gnarled. As if this wasn't enough, he was also afflicted by an acute condition of psoriasis. Psoriasis is some kind of a benign cancer wherein the skin cells continues to develop, and then it falls off. So the skin is raw all the time, and he had it all over his body. So extremely painful kind of a condition. So at a personal level, he lived with it from the age of maybe 30 or onwards. And since his father died quite early, he felt his responsibility to bring up his siblings. There were totally 5. He was the eldest. And so he really became a father figure. So to discharge that duty well, he decided not to marry and devote himself completely to his family and to his own cause. So these are all his own personal challenges that he had. And so because of these health issues and with this arthritis, he decided to drop the idea of becoming a gynecologist, which sometimes requires a lot of physical strength to deliver babies and things like that. So he decided to become an ophthalmologist. And he became a great ophthalmologist, being in a small town of Madurai then, which was not very well known for eye care, but under his leadership, the eye department in the Erskine Hospital became one of the best known in the country, attracting a lot of collaborative research from UK, and path-breaking research on vitamin A was done here. And he was one of the very first to establish the link between vitamin A deficiency and loss of sight in young children. So he has done tremendous amount of work sitting in this small corner of the world. Got Padma Shri and those kind of things. And then he is also one human being who could actually handle success. Because in my lifetime, I found most people can deal with failures, but very, very few can actually deal with success, which I think is a remarkable quality that he had. And having done all this work, and he pioneered this work of providing eye care to the rural masses when he was working in the government. And within Tamil Nadu, he's the one who started this Mudalamichar Kannoli Thittam, under the Chief Minister's benevolence or whatever, he started that scheme. So when he retired, at the age of 55, I think he got a few years of extension. At 58, when he finally retired, he had hoped to continue the same work. So he had negotiated with the government for some resources to be given to start the work. And it was promised, but then around the time of his retirement, the government changed, and as fate would have it, the new government that came in, which was another faction of DMK, those promises were not honored, which is typical when governments change. So then Dr. B thought, okay, regardless of the government funding, he would still go ahead and continue his whatever passion he had, to make sure that his competence and skill reaches the common man. And he was well respected in the state, by industrialists and others for his work. So he at that time felt, if the government didn't come to my help, I'll go to the industrialists and philanthropists. And almost certain that they would help him, to realize his dream or vision, of setting up an eye hospital to serve everyone. So he went around trying to raise money, and that was another big discouragement and blow to him. He spent about a week or more, visiting several industrialists, and not one of them really was encouraging. Many of them were discouraging, basically saying, look at your health, look at your age, look at your savings, you don't have anything, so what do you want to take on this kind of a work? You are retired, maybe you should just sit at home. So this is the kind of feedback he got, and then normal people would have come back extremely discouraged. So the Dr. V, given his the way his mind works, he said, okay, I've spent about 2 weeks trying to raise some money, and I got some promises for about 5,000 odd rupees. So he said, if I had worked for these 2 weeks seeing patients, I could have earned a lot more money. So that really became the end of any fundraising or donations. Even though the work that he was planning was largely philanthropic, aimed for the poor people. So like this, he had setback after setback. Even after he started Aravind, I recall, I was then part of the team. When he wanted to expand, he had so much resistance internally, because we had so few staff, we were tightly stretched, we didn't have money. And at that point, he was saying, we would like to build a hospital in Coimbatore. So half of the staff wanted to resign, which is part of their own family members. So he is the person who could take such obstacles and hurdles and turn it around. And right now, he is, even during his lifetime, Aravind was acknowledged as the world's largest eye care system. And more than that, it was acknowledged as probably the only shining example of a social enterprise, which was both serving the poor, at the same time being able to do it in a financially viable manner. So all of this was done essentially by one man, and many of us who are labeled as co-creators of Aravind were merely, I would say, pawns in his hand, or in his scheme of things. So that's the man behind all that is happening now. So I'll get on to talking about the Aravind itself. And before that, very briefly about my own journey. I'm not a doctor or an ophthalmologist. My background is in mathematics in my undergrad, and then business management. And I worked in the corporate world. 6 or 7 years into the corporate world is when Aravind was coming into being. And Dr. V was wanting an administrator, which itself was very unusual, because in India, even today, hospitals are run by doctors, not by administrators. But he recognized that marriage of good management with clinical service is critical for being both effective and efficient. So he was wanting an administrator, not necessarily me. So then I was in Calcutta. So I decided that I'll apply. I was married. My first daughter was born. And so a decision had to be made, whether to continue in Calcutta or to make a switch in location. And then this seemed like a good challenge. So that time I had zero health background or any competence in running hospitals, largely powered by ignorance. I expressed my desire to join Aravind in the very early days, and he didn't say come and join, but instead he had me interviewed by some friends that he had in the US, who in turn had some friends in Calcutta. And then based on their recommendation, I finally got hired. And of course, Aravind that time was not a very viable organization. So the salary that he offered was about a fourth of what I was then earning. So kind of driven by a lot of ignorance and some passion, I made the decision. And so that's been a good move now looking back. So that's my brief journey, and we can talk about both Dr. V and my career moves later after the presentation. So I'm basically going to talk about Aravind model from the perspective of being inclusive, because a service which everyone actually needs. Eye care is something which everyone will have a need during the lifetime. Everyone will need to wear glasses if they become 45 and more. And then if you live beyond 60, you will definitely need a cataract surgery. And a few unfortunate ones will develop other complications as well. So every human being during their lifespan will require eye care services. So the goal was to make eye care available to everyone, recognizing that not everyone will be able to either pay for it or be able to access the eye care services. So this is the sandbox in which the model had to be developed. So Arvind's purpose or vision was eliminating needless blindness. That is blindness that could have either been prevented by early intervention or cured by cataract surgery or sometimes even a pair of glasses. So if you look at it from a social enterprise design, like everyone else, there is the market to be addressed. There are price points to be fixed for the services you provide. And then you need to develop a good delivery mechanism which can provide quality services. So these are all, I think, fundamental parameters for any business development. But then what we realized was that these markets, cost and all that can be viewed from different perspectives. Bala was just talking a little bit earlier about how much it costs, healthcare, how much it costs in Tanzania. So probably the people there who are charging a lot probably have a different concept or a perspective to cost, which could be that, okay, I'm the only provider, so let me charge whatever the market can bear. That is a perspective that people can have. So I want to talk a bit about both of these as we go along. First, on the boundary concept. If you look at the care pathway or for any health issue, there are people who have the problem in the community. So they may or may not be in a position to seek care because sometimes they don't even know they have this problem that can be helped. Or they may have other barriers of not knowing where to go, not having the money, any of those things. And so they only a small subset ends up in a hospital or a caregiving location where diagnosis and advice happens. When they advise certain intervention, could be medication, could be surgery, could be glasses in our case, not everyone follows through. And then those who follow through get the treatment. And quite often we also depend upon the patient for self-care. When you prescribe medication, we are assuming the patient will follow through. And then there is this notion of following whether it worked or not, all of this. But if you look at a typical hospital, most hospitals draw the boundaries within those two circles. Basically, they would say that we will deal with anyone who comes to us. And then we would do a good diagnosis and tell them exactly what is the best intervention. And then if the patient follows through that and agrees to follow through, then we'll provide the treatment. So they are not concerned about those who don't come to them, nor are they concerned about those who don't follow through. And very few are concerned about what happens subsequent to treatment. I mean, they would advise the patient to come back, but if the patient doesn't come back, and they don't own the problem. So in our case, we recognize that if we are really wanting to serve everyone, we really need to break these more traditional boundaries that almost all hospitals have, and then embrace this entire care pathway. So that, I think, was a fundamental difference that Aravind kind of embraced, or I would rather say that Dr. V guided us or mentored the team to embrace, not to be reactive in providing care, but being very proactive in what we do. And so now taking a look at the market, like I said, everyone needs eye care, but of course they need it when they come to a certain stage in life. And applying the broad epidemiological findings and data, roughly 1/4 of the population in a developing country like India, where there are more younger people, would require eye care. So in India, we're talking about 30 crore people needing eye care. And then when we got an estimate of how many of them are served, we found it was 20% is probably a very generous estimate this is true even for a very simple intervention like a pair of glasses. No, and of course for more complex conditions it could be even lower than this because the treatment for more complex conditions are in very few locations, largely in state capitals, and that too not in all state capitals. So this really meant that our focus, if we want to be true to our purpose of serving everyone, then our focus had to be on what I'm calling as non-customers. That is people who have the problem, but they are still not part of the system, or not really part of the market. No, so we really have to bring them into the market. So our focus had to be on non-customers. And in a developing country like India, those non-customers predominantly tend to be at the bottom of the pyramid. No? And then those people have certain unique characteristics. No? So unlike me and several others who may be listening to this, no, we are not assured of the salary on the 30th of the month or the 1st of the month. No? And then unlike us, for that group, they may get some income or no income, and it will be varying. No? And they have very challenging living conditions. And like, for example, you could not prescribe medication to them that needs to be refrigerated. No? And they're also not as familiar with what is available. No? Like an urban person who's better connected. So, but then they also tend to seek trusted advice, and quite contrary, they demand respect. So that cohort, though very poor, are extremely sensitive. A lot more sensitive than the middle and the upper class. And they also tend to be very smart shoppers. In the sense that their bandwidth for making a wrong choice is very small. Now, people like us who are a little bit better off, middle class and above, we can buy a shirt for 1,000 rupees and decide not to wear it because our friend or wife told us this doesn't look good or whatever. But those kind of mistakes are not an option for people living at the bottom of the pyramid. So they tend to be quite smart in shopping or making investments in a very, very different way. So our approach to them was to reaching out was through eye camps, and I'm just going to play a video which may or may not come out well given the bandwidth challenges. So all these camps, like read out in the introduction, are organized by community organizations. And this was by a Lions Club, who take care of mobilizing the community, a lot of volunteers to manage the crowd. And we bring in our team of staff. A lot of these young women are from villages trained by us. So these patients go through sort of like an assembly line process. And school buildings normally are very good for doing this. There are different classrooms which we assign for different stations. And we do a reasonably comprehensive examination, not as good as in a hospital, but close. And if they need glasses, we're able to provide them glasses of the actual prescription, not standard glasses, which are made and fitted to the frame of the patient's choice. Because when it comes to wearing glasses, it's also a bit of a fashion statement. Even this lady tried half a dozen frames before picking one. And then she's able to immediately check if she got the right glasses or not. And then those requiring surgery are bussed. The buses are pre-arranged. They're brought to one of the base hospitals, wherein further tests are done. They would spend the night there. And then the next morning, they're taken in for surgery. They are operated. And then again, they rest for a couple of days. And then when they are discharged, they're again put back into buses, which will take them back to the same village from which they were brought in. So this has been, this still continues in a pretty large scale. Like these are numbers for last year. In 2018-19, we did over 2,800 eye camps. If you include the children who were screened, we screened close to 1 million or 10 lakh patients. 88,000 cataract surgeries, and with other surgeries put together, probably 1 lakh of surgeries was done, and all of this done at no cost to the patient. So these numbers are quite impressive by any standards, because there are very few hospitals which does this kind of work overall, everything put together. And we too were in that phase of euphoria that we are doing a lot of good to the community. But at one point of time, we really wanted to know if this was good enough. Are we reaching everyone in the community? So we did a study. We went back to the villages where eye camps were conducted, examined all the people in the community, and found out people who said they had an eye problem. And then we checked if they really came to the eye camp or not. And then to our surprise, we found that in fact less than 7% of those who felt they had an eye problem. It is not everyone who had an eye problem. A subset actually felt they need to do something about it. And of that subset, only 7% actually came to an eye camp. So that was very depressing. And really not knowing how to address this. So we sort of went back to the drawing board, and then we kind of thought about it. And in hindsight, we were able to recognize that you go to a village or a small town once in a year, and then these eye camps typically run for about 5-6 hours. Then we realized, how can everyone come within that one window of time, which has been largely scheduled based on our availability, our convenience. Now, it is not designed on the convenience completely of the community. Now, we go on a weekend, so all of that, we make it sort of accessible, but then it's for a very short period of time. And then we realize that we need to be present there on a permanent basis. So even though that seems like a logical solution, we recognize that there are a lot of challenges to make it happen. Like how would you want to have your eye care facility in place of an eye camp, which means something which serves 50, 60, 1 lakh population, you want to put up a facility. How do we make it financially viable? Now, how do you ensure quality? Quality I'm raising as an issue because eye doctors are not in enough numbers. And then being specialists, they are not happy to go and work in villages. So they want to work in bigger cities. That's the reality, no? So which means that we need to run these places without eye doctors, which kind of logically would mean the quality won't be as good as a well-trained doctor. But then we didn't want to compromise on this, so we worked a lot on this problem. This was in the 1999-2000 when internet was not what we experience today. We couldn't do what we are doing now 20 years back. So we had to come up with some solution. So then we developed and put up our own internet system using Wi-Fi. We fortunately had a group of students from UC Berkeley who had developed some technology to make Wi-Fi go long distances. So we had to set up our own towers to provide line of sight. We had to put up antennas. So we did all this keeping the cost as low as possible. Some of the antennas were put on top of houses by getting permission, or on top of chimneys in factories and so on. And then we also had to do some more innovation because a lot of eye care, ophthalmology, is visual, in the sense you examine the patient, you look into the retina, you look into the cornea, you magnify and look at things. So how do we substitute for that? You know, so we and then there are cameras which can do that, but they're extremely expensive. You know, a camera which can photograph the retina those days used to cost about $25,000. We're talking about 10, 12 lakhs those days. So we kind of innovated. We used ordinary digital camera. There is a device called a slit lamp, which was part of the primary care centers, which does reasonable magnification. We used the optics of that device, and we made some adapters to ordinary digital cameras. So that brought down the cost to about 1% of this thing. Not as good as the $25,000 camera, but good enough, you know, to triage a patient. And then we recognized that if we want to use technologies like telemedicine, we would require the medical information to be available for collaboration. So we developed an electronic medical record in the cloud. I think that language didn't exist then. The cloud language came much later. So that the doctor and the technician at our end both could see the records and the information. And then the doctor could send the prescription for glasses or medicines. So this is how we conceived the whole caregiving process. And there's a small video for a minute or so which will explain how this works. So this is a patient in Sholavanda who's walking into the clinic. She's a tailor. And then she pays 20 rupees for the checkup, which is good for 3 visits. And then she gets a complete comprehensive eye exam. She's being checked here for glasses by a well-trained technician, both for near and distant vision. And then we also use the opportunity of checking for blood pressure and diabetes. She's being checked for glaucoma. And then this is what eye doctor also do, some imaging. Then all the information is now can listen to the conversation. So the doctor on the other end opens up the same medical record and talks to them.
சொல்லுங்கம்மா என்ன செய்து கண்ணை நூல் போக முடியல எவ்வளவு நாளா இருக்குமா 2-3 மாசம் ஆகுது சக்கரை பிரஷர் இருக்கா ஒன்றும் பிரச்சனை இல்லைம்மா கண்ணில் வெள்ளை தான் இருக்கு அது கண்ணாடி போடணும் கண்ணாடி போடுங்க போட்டுட்டு 6 மாசம் கழிச்சு வந்து காட்டுங்க சரியா.
So the doctor sends the prescription from the base hospital, which gets printed out here, and then whatever is prescribed, glasses in this case, she can choose right from the counter there. In this case, she's picking up a ready-made glass, and then she's picked one that she likes, and she knows it works for her. and then it's all done. So within half an hour, everything is sorted out. This patient wants some medicine, which also he can buy locally itself. So this is the kind of work we've been doing to kind of give easy access to people and bring them into the loop. So the next part of the equation is that how do we make it affordable? So here again, we recognize how we looked at cost was critical. So for most people providing charitable care, they would look at how much they're charging, or sometimes they may even waive the charges, make it free. So we realized that making it free also may not be affordable, because there are a lot of other costs that happens when a patient accesses care. Now, one part of it is what the hospital charges, and even if it is zero, there are other costs. There are costs of the accompanying person, and then there are costs associated with lost wages, because bulk of these people are daily wage earners. And then you have transportation cost and food cost and all kinds of things. So this is the total cost to the patient. And then we took the perspective of reducing this total cost, because even if you give it as zero, these costs are there. So unless we reduce and work on this, it cannot become affordable to the patient. So that became the focus. So we did several things. One, people are still quite surprised that we don't have any appointments, because we realized that giving an appointment actually increases cost to the patient, because then they'll have to make a trip almost specifically for the eye care need. But today, lots of times, it's very true from, say, people coming from Ramnad or Kelakare, they may come to Madurai for a wedding. So then they would all say that, okay, Kalyanathuku porom, abdiye kannai kaamichittu vanduruvom. So many people add on, because eye care seldom is an emergency. So they would most of the time they would add it to something else, which not having an appointment facilitates. So we don't have any waiting list. Everybody who comes gets seen the same day. Everybody admitted today will get operated the next day. So we are gearing on the back end through predictive models of predicting demand. So today we have models which can predict daily patient volumes in every clinic. It can predict by the hour how many patients we're likely to get. So all those technologies available today. So we kind of use all of that stuff. And then we complete as far as possible the entire care cycle on a single visit. In the previous example, you saw that a lady in Sholavandan came to the vision center. She had this diagnosis done, a prescription was given, and then she could leave with the glasses. Or in the eye camp, there was this lady who got the glasses right there. So completing it on a single visit reduces the cost tremendously to the patient. And also doing it at the appropriate level. We didn't ask the camp patient for a pair of glasses to come to the hospital. And then very importantly, in the hospital, we have two sections. This is true in all the hospitals. One hospital we call as the free hospital, wherein the professional charges are zero. There is no consulting fees. There is no fees for staying inpatient. They might have to pay for the medicines or consumables, which is what we're calling as subsidized. So for example, a cataract surgery in the paying hospital on an average is around 10,000 rupees, while in the free section, they would pay 850 rupees, which would include the post-operative medication, which they'll have to use for a month after the leave after surgery. So we designed things to minimize cost for the patient. And within the hospital, we focused on efficiency and quality to bring our costs down. If you become very efficient, and then if you're giving good quality work, that means you're doing it right the first time and every time. That also reduces the cost. And then very aggressively managing bottleneck resources. Because every organization will have bottlenecks. It is not a bad thing. It's just the reality. It all depends how you manage the bottleneck that increases your throughput. And this is one example. Like for example, let's say you have a good surgeon, a very efficient one. And then if you give the surgeon just one table, one scrub nurse, one set of instruments, the doctor can at best do one surgery per hour. Now, because just the turnaround of the table, the patient, the surgical instrument will take an hour or more. But the same surgeon, you provide another table, you give another assisting nurse, you give few more instrument sets. The same surgeon can do the same surgery with the same good quality, 6 to 8 surgeries per hour. So we have employed many such principles. This video sort of explains that. The surgeon is operating on one table, and the second table, the patient is made ready. And once the surgery is over, the surgeon just swings the microscope onto the other patient. Now use an antiseptic to become sterile, and the surgery begins. So this way we're able to significantly use the resources to the optimum. A pretty lean way of doing things. So on the quality, again, our perspective was not only about clinical outcomes, which is very critical in a hospital, but also how do you preserve the patient's dignity? Allowing the patient to choose free care or a paid care is one form of doing it. So your poor patient doesn't need to come and kind of beg or say that I'm too poor to pay, and so they can just go to the free section and get the care they want. In fact, there is a true anecdote of Dr. Abdul Kalam going to our free section before he was discovered and brought back. Now, because he was not poor, but he didn't have cash. He had only a check, and then those days we were not accepting checks, and we also didn't recognize him for what he was at that point of time. The girls in the counter didn't recognize him, so they said that if you don't have cash, no problem, sir, you can go to the free hospital and you can get your care. So he went there. So deciding that was critical, and also we recognize that good quality has to be there for everyone, in terms of regardless of paying. So, and this became a challenge in the late 1980s when a new technology called intraocular lens came in, the image on the right. Now, it is a lens that you implant inside the eye when you do a cataract surgery. If you don't do that, you would need to wear glasses like this elderly gentleman is wearing, what we call a soda bottle glasses. They're very high powered, plus 11, plus 12. And without the glasses, they are blind. And with the glasses, it is not a great vision. But once you put this lens inside the eye, that person's vision is as good as what they had when they were in their teenage. Remarkably different quality of vision. But then in the late 1980s, these lenses cost about $200. So even the rich patients, not everyone could afford. Only the higher income group could afford. Even the middle class would prefer not to get this. So our attempts to bargain down the price then to about $10, which should have been around 250, 300 rupees then, that was not even at a negotiation level. $200 to $10, they just kind of laughed very sarcastically at us. So that pushed us to get into manufacturing, which is a very difficult decision then. So we set up a factory and then started making lenses, which was of same quality as made in the US, in fact, better quality. I say this because unknown to us at that point of time, few people bought our lenses from the market. I think largely to discredit us. They took it to US and had the US FDA labs analyze it. And then the scientists who analyzed it later published a paper wherein he said the poorest amongst the Aurolab lenses compares favorably with the commercially sold lenses in the US, which was an incredible certification. And then with good quality at very affordable prices, obviously the demand picked up. And then not only we were selling at a lower price, we completely disrupted the market with our price point to the extent that everyone had to drop the prices overall. Now today, Aurolab has about 12% of the global market. They sell about 3 million lenses each year now. And in terms of Aravind constantly had this kind of tensions in the model. So Dr. V said we got to treat everyone whether they can pay or not. On the other hand, he also said we shouldn't go around begging for money. We have to be financially viable. So you can see this tension playing out. And I think it is these kind of tensions that has continually made us to innovate and become what we are. So when it came to pricing, when we recognized that most patients can't pay, we made 0 as a legitimate price. We gave away a lot of it for free. And then for those who can pay, we charged market rates. And we, of course, had the mindset to cross-subsidize. The surplus that you make, we had the mindset that we can use it for treating the poor people. So that's how this whole model works. And I want to conclude with a few slides on the impact so that we have time for some Q&A. We started in 1976 with 11 beds in a rented house. It's a 4-bedroom house. Today we have 7 large hospitals, each of them seeing 1,000 to 3,000 patients a day. 7 secondary or smaller hospitals, 6 clinics that are run by doctors, and 79 vision centers, primary care clinics. And each day we see over 13,000 patients, between 1,500 to 2,000 surgeries, lots of outreach and training as well. This network of primary care centers now pretty much dots whole of Tamil Nadu. Our goal is to make this 79 to about 120 or so, so that the whole state gets covered. Today, we see these centers alone see about 6.5 to 7 lakh patients a year. These centers, in terms of population reach, has been quite phenomenal. I mean, this was a study done earlier where the ICAMs reached about 0.25% of the population, while these vision centers reached about close to 25% of the population. So almost 100 times increase in population coverage, making it probably the only example of universal access or a fully inclusive model. These are the numbers for last year: about 44 lakh outpatient visits, more than 5 lakh surgeries, about 7 lakh glasses dispensed, and about half of them were given free or at a steep subsidy. I believe this way of working, which builds tremendous support and faith from the community, is what has kept us growing continually. We have done about 73 lakh surgeries cumulatively. And then the processes that we follow has also made us very efficient in terms of productivity. And this has had a big role in significantly reducing our costs and thereby increasing our margins and capacity to serve those who cannot pay. In terms of quality, you don't have to understand what these are. These are statistics of complications, and you can see Aravind's complication is significantly lower than UK's. We're running about 50% or even less in terms of complications compared to UK or USA. And financially, we continue to be viable. Now, in the early days, it was hand to mouth, but as the volumes increased and then our efficiencies increased, the income is more than the expenditure, which is allowing us to both grow and serve those who cannot pay. So having this model of paying and free patients is actually very fundamental to this model. I don't think it will work if you don't have the free patients. So it is so integral to us. Now, it's the free patients that gives us the community trust, the economy of scale, the efficiency, the whole frugal mindset across the system, not to waste anything. Now, all of that comes out of serving the poor, and to us, that's very important. And all of this work is, even though it is within Aravind, we also took the stand that whatever we have learned, we have to share with everyone else. So we're almost into the notion of creating our own competition. So we share all of these things, including Aurolab's production, all our protocols, all our charges, or everything, the software, everything is accessible to other hospitals, and we do it quite proactively. We have worked with hospitals across 28 countries now, and this by itself has increased the quantum of eye care, much more than what we do. So we have a whole institute that does this kind of work. And in concluding, I think my reflection is that it is not just the systems that I described that is achieved what we have achieved. It's, I think, a lot to do with the perspective, of to the market, to the cost, and I think quite importantly, I believe we have built a very value-based organization. I think that's probably more fundamental to this model than anything else. So let me conclude by playing this one video by Dr. V. Hopefully it's audible to everyone.
And suddenly he turned around, and then you seem to contact his inner being. You seem to be one with him. But here is a soul which has got all the simplicity of confidence. Doctor, whatever you say, I accept it. An implicit faith in you. And then you responded. Here is an old lady who has got so much faith in me. I must do my best for her. Now, how am I going to train myself to do perfect? When we grow in spiritual consciousness, we are into ourselves with all that is in the world. So there is no exploitation. It is ourselves we are helping. It is ourselves we are giving.
So thank you very much. On to you, Kaushik. Hopefully all that was audible and visible.
Yes, Doctor, thank you so much for that extensive presentation. It was very, very inspiring to all of us here. And there are also a lot of people from the Aravind family who have joined, looking after the poster. A lot of people from the Aravind family also joined. I'm very sure they are also very inspiring.
Hope they didn't get bored.
So there are a few questions that are going. Balma, do you want to take over?
Yeah, I think I'll start with the first one or two questions, and then I think specific questions can be taken over.
Balma, your laptop screen has to be a bit more down because it's too much of your laptop screen camera. That's good. Yeah.
It's okay?
Yeah,
okay. So the question is that you talked about a business approach to healthcare, where you're talking about boundaries. I think that was a paradigm shift in approach in healthcare, both in the government and, I don't know about government, but certainly in the private sector. Was that a conscious input from your end, Mr. Thulasiraj?
Yes. One kind of a disclaimer I should make is a lot of what I said is in hindsight. Something is to do what we did, which I think is probably Dr. V and the divine guidance he must have had. So a lot of what I said is distilling what we do, and we recognize that our boundaries are much wider than a typical hospital's boundary. Most hospitals only would see patients who come to them, and they would treat patients who are willing to get treated. So they didn't own the problem by and large. Yeah.
I think that said, probably that said, the number of patients you can cater to, and also this scams. The way I understood, and when I wrote the article, it helped, as you have rightly at the end of the presentation. So you said they help the capacity utilization of the of the hospital, the eye care centers you have. How did it happen? The idea of camps.
One, Dr. B pioneered these eye camps even when he was in the government service. But those days, the eye camps always meant you screened the patients and then you also operated the patients right in the campsite itself.
Okay.
Maybe a school building or a wedding hall or something like that. So the number of camps were not that many compared to, they were not thousands. There would be like 10, 20 in a year, maximum. But when we started Aravind, and those kind of camps require a lot of resources.
Okay.
You have to operate about 300-400 patients to make it worthwhile. So we require a large number of doctors, a lot of money, and none of that we had. So we said that, okay, let us just go to the villages, screen the patients, maybe 100, 200 at a time, maybe some 10, 15 may require surgery. We'll bring them to the hospital and operate. Yeah. So in the early days, there was a lot of criticism to our way of organizing camps. Some of the old timers would even say, Aravind is a fraud. They don't do surgery in the campsite. They're only screening the patients. They bring them. But now WHO has declared that you shouldn't do surgeries in the site, because there was a lot of compromise to quality and things like that. So in our case, this model of conducting camps kind of evolved out of necessity.
Okay. A question from Mr. Krishnan. He says it is very impressive and inspiring. Is the cost of the total system covered by paying customers? As a social enterprise, does the system also depends on donations or grants? If so, what might be the percentage of external dependence?
We are completely self-sufficient. We don't do any fundraising at all. But some donations do come because people see our work and they give money, and then we do accept and honor them. But then that constitutes the pure donation for patient care would be less than 1%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Then one more thing I was thinking about. There is a cost of healthcare when the government spends on its citizens, and then there's a cost of healthcare in private. That we know it's very expensive compared to Aravind. Is there been a comparative study anywhere or somewhere in the system where we found how much a government spends and compared to how is the efficiency of Aravind?
It has not been done for Aravind, but there's been a very nice publication by one Amarjit Singh, where he compared the cost of cataract surgery in a government setting and in a NGO setting. A government setting, a couple of teaching hospital, district hospital, and so on. And there he combined the quality as well. So looking at successful surgeries, cost per case. So the cost in the NGO sector came down significantly lower than in the government. So the government setup, the cost actually is more because of issues around efficiency and so on. And then we had compared our costs with our volume is pretty high. I think today our volume may be as high as what UK does. I did this comparison about 10 years ago when I gave a TED talk comparing our cost with UK's cost, at which time our volume was roughly 70% of all of UK's. And then because they had also the cost figure, and I extrapolated our cost to UK's volume, and I found that our cost was about 1% of what UK was spending.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so to me, I think our costs are extremely low on account of productivity.
Okay.
Yeah.
That part is understood. So the productivity drives down the cost is how you're coming around.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. There is a question from Bharati. Some words about artist Mr. Manohar Devdas, who was recently awarded with Padma Shri.
So this can be a very long conversation. So Mano became a very a dear friend because he wrote a book on Greenwell years, which was about him growing up in Madurai, which my wife belongs to Madurai. So when she read the book, she was extremely moved, and so she wrote to him a letter. That time the book was not released in Madurai yet. She had got a copy from Chennai. So she just wrote appreciating the book, and she did not put a from address, but then she had given some indication that her husband works in Aravind and so on. So when he was launching the book in Madurai, he sent an invitation letter to us asking us to come for the book launch, and that's where we first met him. And I think it was, as the saying goes, love at first sight. So we really bonded, not just us, with Aravind as a whole. And then since then, Mano has become an integral part of Aravind. So he makes several trips, and he and his wife, who's also another very remarkable human being, she's no more now. They've made multiple visits and truly inspirational. And we had helped him a lot to do many of the sketches in Madurai. Help in the sense we would drive him around when he had very little vision, early in the morning and in the evenings when he could see a little bit more. So that has been a long friendship. And then Mano, because of his condition, requires a lot of help. So his monthly expense just on help, somebody cooking, somebody doing something else, is quite significant. So he does have a lot of financial needs. But in spite of all that, he gave a significant contribution when his wife died to create an endowment for people with low vision. I think he gave some 20, 25 odd lakhs. I don't remember the exact number. Now the endowment is more than double. Now to help people with very low vision. Mano has very low vision.
Yeah.
So he's a remarkable human being. I mean, and then we're very fortunate to have his friendship. Yeah.
The next question is from Krishna. Will Aravind have planned to enter other than eye hospitals? Because more people need such kind of help in other diseases as well.
So it is kind of yes and no, in the sense on our own we don't have plans to enter other disciplines unless there is a very tight overlap. Like for instance, in the 1980s, when we discovered that a lot of children were going blind due to vitamin A deficiency, we recognized that to address that, we need to address a child as a whole. The child's nutrition and other conditions, because the going vitamin A deficiency was not an ophthalmic problem.
Yeah.
It was a general nutrition problem.
Yeah.
So we got into nutrition rehabilitation centers. We actually opened a children's hospital. We employed pediatricians. And then 15 years down the line, through a combination of a lot of research and intervention done, vitamin A deficiency as a problem, eye care problem in this part of the world is gone.
Oh.
So we have subsequently closed the children's hospital. So unless those kind of intersection comes in, we may not go. So one area where we might extend could be diabetes. Given the very high level of diabetic retinopathy, you need to manage diabetes to control its complications. So who knows? If not in our generation, next generation may decide to do that. So the answer is we may not directly get into it. Now coming to the yes part, so what we do is based on certain principles which are applicable to beyond eye care. Things like efficiency, quality, standardization, all of that is transparency in pricing, building a value-based organization. All of that is applicable beyond eye care. So we have mentored a number of other hospitals outside of for eye care. We have this institute for mentoring, but for others we're a bit reactive, not proactive. So we worked with the general hospitals. There's a hospital in Bangalore called as People Tree. So we have worked with some reconstructive surgeon in Bangalore, with a pediatric cardiologist in Hyderabad, some dental hospitals. So we worked with a number of other healthcare providers, who are very move to serve the community as a whole, who want to do much more of an ethical practice. That's another thing that we're also kind of pushing beyond eye care is how does healthcare become more ethical and responsible, not become exploitative, which we are now getting a lot of criticism in healthcare. So that's another thing that we are kind of pushing as an agenda. So in fact, through another several individuals, we have formed a consortium of equitable healthcare consortium. So that's how we are trying to influence beyond eye care.
A related question, Doctor, when you say equitable, when you utter the word, the eye care is the same whether it's a free or paid patient in Aravind. Was that a conscious call from day one by Dr. V?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. He was a very strong proponent, not only within Aravind, saying that the eyeball is the same for every human being. The problem they get is the same. The way you have to deal with it is the same. So why should there be a difference? So from day one, that philosophy was there. So on the front end, there could be some differences in the ambience and things like that. In the back end, we do a lot of things to make sure that the equity is maintained. So the staff is rotated between the free and the paying hospital. There is a way of grading the complexity of the surgery so that something complex is done by a senior surgeon regardless of they are paying or free. So in the back end, there are a lot of processes.
Another question is from Anusha. How did you manage to sustain financially in the initial days until the volume increased and you had the break even?
So initial stage, I think it's very much like a startup entrepreneur where it's a lot of sweat capital. Basically, you work, don't get paid, or you get paid very little. So that was the paradigm in the initial days. Dr. Venkateswamy never took any salary throughout his life. In Aravind, only his costs were covered. Costs in the sense he was traveling somewhere, so which was legitimate on work. Many of us were paid a very small salary in the initial days, so it was hand to mouth. Certain times the family property had to be mortgaged to raise capital, sometimes for building or for working capital as well. So the early days, it was a bit of a struggle. But I think that was a huge blessing. I think it is that struggle which brought in this culture of frugality, not wanting to pay. So I think the payback of that early days is phenomenal for us.
Thank you, Doctor. There is another question, probably I think it is a little technical. I don't know whether it can be answered by you. Is there any therapy to address sight issues without going for surgery or spectacles, especially for kids and school-going children?
It is technical. I don't want to. There are instances where exercises can help the child, and we also prescribe them. But that depends on examining the child and deciding what it is. And eye care is one area where a lot of the interventions are fairly safe and fairly well proven.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think that has got to be done on a case-to-case basis. I don't think there can be a general answer.
Okay, thank you. That next question is from Dr. Sankita Rao. Why not a diabetes and hypertension screening for all patients too in the vision centers?
We do that. Yeah, we do that. Yeah, currently we do that. And in fact, we are now also investing in putting in some more technology to make sure that we're trying to put in a protocol wherein everyone above 20 for the first time would get checked for diabetes. Everybody above 40 would get screened for hypertension. We are putting in those protocols in place. And today also we do that. I think we do it above 40 today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Another question that is related to the earlier one which you had answered. How did you actually survive tough times? I know you talked about mortgaging family properties. And was there any time, personally, you thought that the venture is not going anywhere? I mean, typically the entrepreneurship has such phases.
We somehow fortunately didn't have those kind of testing times, maybe because of the nature of work and then the resilience that Dr. V brought in, I would say, because healthcare by and large is a cash and carry business. From a financial point of view, people pay you cash. And then pretty much all your resource you get credit. Because you pay your employees end of the month, so they're giving you 1 month credit or 15 days credit, whatever. And then most of the suppliers, the norm is to have some credit. So that from a cash flow point of view, there isn't too much of a challenge. We do things well. So the whole question is about building the demand side. And I think on the demand side, what really worked for us is one, pricing, and then doing everything from a patient-centric perspective, which really brought in a lot of trust onto our system. So patient knows exactly how much it is going to cost. Like even our outpatient service, rather than charging for every little procedure, we just said those days was 10 rupees when we started. That would include everything, and we said it's good for 3 visits. And which was much lower than the market rates even then. I mean, even today it's 100 rupees, good for 3 visits, and it covers pretty much all of the investigations. So those kind of things built in the trust and the scale. So we didn't really have that struggle.
Yeah. Another question, but it is a bit repetitive, but I think some more clarification will be of help. How did the free treatment numbers help Aravind in achieving its goal in terms of profit and self-sustainability or self-sufficiency? You talked about it. Maybe probably he's asking again.
Yeah. So Dr. B would always say, and this is true. If there are poor people, there are also rich people. So if a poor man comes to you, he's probably working for a rich man. He's a farmer who cannot see, so the landlord probably told him to stay at home or whatever. And then suddenly he finds this man is able to see. He has a very good operator. He is around the hospital. He's not going to say free section or whatever. So we recognize this. So whenever we used to organize eye camps, we used to find after 2 months, there would be a blip in the paying patients from that area.
Okay.
So we kind of recognize that, okay, in about 2 months' time, the patient got operated, went back, and then it's become productive again, and the word got around. So the people who had similar problem, have checked, and then they have showed up. So it actually started acting as a marketing tool, because we don't do any advertisement. In fact, when newspapers come and ask, quite often they would come and say, "You're doing this human service. We would like to do an article on you." And then in the end, they would say that, "Can you please take a half-page advertisement?" And we would always say no, and I would always say that if it means that you won't publish the article, I said it's perfectly fine. So we are very advertisement averse, good or bad. But then these eye camps and the free work serve as tremendous goodwill builder. And then the publicity for the eye camp, which is all done by the community partners, we don't do the advertising. They would always talk about the eye camp, and they would always say that the expert team from Aravind Hospital will come and examine your eyes. So that's good advertisement. Yeah. So this free work, in a sense, has helped us a lot in terms of building the paying clientele. And then having this whole ethos of treating everyone equally on the clinical side has given us that the scale to develop the skills, to put in good quality protocols and things like that. So like I said, looking today, it is not having the free section would be like cutting off one of our legs. So it is not possible for us to survive without that part.
Without the free patient.
Yeah.
I think that free part is from it is understood in a conventional sense.
Yeah.
So they only come here to drain the resources. I think the goodwill part of it, like the way the revenue models of the internet organizations change, like Google and all that, they don't really sell anything. They only sell the advertising space. One of the finest points which I personally thought we realized is typically a business enterprise is supposed to be looking at maximizing the investor wealth or maximizing the profits. But originally, when the times of management thought started, someone like Peter Drucker says the purpose of an organization is to identify the needs of its customers and fulfilling it in the most efficient manner at the fastest possible time. That profits is an example. It is making profits is an example. It has been done well. Aravind seems to be embodying that particular spirit behind what Peter Drucker wrote. And in a large sense, Gandhi also speaks on the same way. I think it has probably evolved with the ethos of Dr. B. Am I correct in assuming that, sir?
Yeah, very true. Very true.
Yeah. Okay. So the next question is, the work you and your team are doing is just phenomenal. Considering the surgeon and the number of patients ratio is less, how did you manage to maintain quality? What about the medical mistakes, especially when 2 beds are there in one operating theater?
So the way we have achieved this both high quality and high efficiency is largely through 2 things. Now, one is constantly monitoring, making sure that there are no errors or deficiencies. And we have multiple systems, not only monitoring errors, but we also monitor near misses. And then we have very strict protocols and then checklist process and things like that. But I think what really has helped us in the process is significant task shifting. So if you take in the healthcare giving, there are 2 broad domains of tasks. One domain is very repetitive, measurement in nature. Okay. The other one is using that information to make judgment, to arrive at a diagnosis or whatever. So in terms of split of work, it's almost 80-20 or 90-10, whatever. In the sense, bulk of the work is of the repetitive nature. So we kind of train people to do this repetitive work. So if anyone who's come into our system will find a lot of young girls who are all high school pass, whom we put them through a 2-year training. They're all from villages. We take about 500 girls each year. And they go through 2 years of very rigorous training. And they really are the backbone of the organization in terms of both building the efficiency, quality, as well as the culture of the organization. All of it really comes from them. And each person does 1 or 2 tasks in which they have been trained. So the task itself gets done extremely well. It could be measuring vision, measuring intraocular pressure or blood pressure or any of those tasks. So we don't waste the doctor's time in doing those things. So the doctor is kind of interpreting those findings to come to a conclusion. So that is, and same thing applies in surgery also. Surgery also, this entire process of prepping the patient and everything is done by technicians. The doctor starts off with making the incision and closing the wound. Ends with closing the wound. So everything around is done by the technicians. Or even talking to the patient, the doctor would definitely tell the patient what the diagnosis is and what the treatment is, but then not spend too much time. But then we have patient counselors who would spend all the time it takes to talk to the patient to explain. So I think this task shifting has kind of made sure that at one level the quality is maintained, and at another level, in fact, I would even argue if a doctor did all the things that needs to be done, I'm pretty certain the quality won't be as good as what it is now. No, because they may do that one step maybe 5 times in a day versus somebody else doing it 50 times in a day.
Faster.
Yeah, so that's how we are kind of achieving both. And I think making sure everything works well is the monitoring. And that is done extremely rigorously. And then we also built a culture within the organization wherein the errors and the failures are dealt with in a very healthy way. It is never personalized. So even if it was an individual who did the mistake, we will recognize it's because of training or whatever. You know? So there's a lot of safety feeling, you know, in airing a failure or a complication or whatever.
Okay. When we looked at the numbers of National Health Services of Britain and Aravind, very surely it is a very impressive number. Is there something Aravind has contributed in terms of the SOPs or the processes you mentioned? One would say the gold standards kind of a thing. Is there something evolved and it is recognized worldwide, sir?
Yes, even in fact in UK itself, at one time I was invited by the health secretary. I mean, they call them a secretary, what we call as minister here. Patricia Hewitt, she was the one who was the health secretary. Then she wanted me to come and talk to their leaders, the healthcare leaders, so the head of NHS, and it was a 2 hours breakfast meeting, wherein we went through a lot of the details. So in some sense, what we do is a little bit of an unfair comparison, because what we have achieved to do is build a process by which we're able to funnel all the people into few facilities. Within Tamil Nadu, we have built a whole system, which is both what we do and what the patient also wants. So they're willing to travel long distances to come into this. So we have basically become a focused factory. Where we can optimize all the processes. Everything is under control, good protocols we can check and do, which is not really possible in a countrywide system, run by a government. So no government can say you want a cataract surgery, come to London and get it. No, it won't work. Okay. So I think we had a very healthy conversation, but then that's where it ended. Yeah.
It's possibly the differences in the markets don't allow this kind of an approach.
Yeah, markets, and also I think with the UK, the more of the issue was around capacity utilization and cost.
Yeah.
Those were the issues, not so much the quality. Yeah.
The next question is from Krishna again. What Aravind does on the employee motivation where markets have a lot of attrition? Like I'm sure given the standards Aravind has built, there'll be a lot of clamor for recruiting people from Aravind. So how does Aravind manage its attrition?
I think we do have attrition in the sense we have the highest attrition in the mid-level ophthalmic posts, the village girls that we recruit, and a lot of the attrition is on account of marriage, by and large. Because we take them in soon after high school, which means they're about 17, 18, and they have 2 years training. They're about 20 by the time they become our regular staff. And then we require them to work for 3 years with us. So they're 22, 23. And we also have some inbuilt schemes to help build their dowry and whatever. So by the time they're ready to get married, they have some good savings. So that is the attrition. So in terms of why would somebody want to work with us, I think so we pay a lot of attention to two things in terms of when we recruit people. A few things are there. Most of the people who come into the system, this is the first job. All these mid-level people, all the doctors, most of the managers, admin staff. So it is that's something we are keen, because if it's the first job, one, they don't have other influences. They're young by default. So we're able to mold them. That is one. Second is, in the selection process, we give complete weightage to organization or value fit, rather than on competency or academic excellence. Now we try to judge a person's simplicity, hard work, capacity to be engaged with others. So we look at certain qualities, and we have certain techniques that we have developed over time to do this. Like for example, when interviewing a girl, we will say, "Ni amma help pannuviya?" All the girls say yes. Now, eppadi sambar veppanu sollu? No, so we will catch her. So that is one. And the third thing that we do is we invest quite a bit in orientation. After they come on board, for these young girls, it's almost 4 months orientation. From grooming to everything. For doctors, it's a 1 month orientation. So there's a significant. So all of these things cost us money. Okay. But then all of this is what I think pays back in terms of engagement.
True. There's one more point which I wanted to make it, Mr. Thulasiraj here. There's one more set of experiment which is happening in Gadchiroli, where Dr. Abhay Bang and Rani Bang are working on the typically on the maternal care. There also they have picked up the village midwives who probably can barely read and write, and they have been trained. And you made a similar point. I think the orientation towards the organizational objectives or the identification with the organization and the purpose is more important than the academic excellence or any other parameter. Now, this is in this context, I want to make one point. Very recently, we have been having a major social issue where the entire medical college entrance exams are moving towards a very highly competitive entrance exam, which seemingly are at a disadvantage to people from village or a poor background. But the argument given in favor is that that ensures quality. But the success of Aravind and success of Gadchiroli both say that no, it is more with some kind of an attitude towards this profession. What do you think about this particular move?
I think it's a very difficult challenge that you are raising, because this is something which even the US is grappling with. I think they've also moved. I think US is a lot more mature society when it comes to this academic admissions and all that. But in India, for one medical seat, you have, the number of applicants are extremely high. Right. So we really cannot have that kind of a personalized selection in a truthful manner. It will very quickly degenerate into corruption and nepotism. So I think probably what we are having now, which is purely merit-based, academic merit-based, has its own shortcomings. But I think to the extent that the individual really wants it, could be a saving grace. So given our situation, I don't think we can have a different model. But what you're saying is very true. But I think hopefully down the line we may mature to getting the people with the right mindset into the system. But I don't know when that can happen. And it is something which very few societies have really broken. In the US also there are universities which look at people's background. They don't want only science. They want people with socials and art background. They give them more weightage. But they're also struggling. Yeah.
Okay. The other question is, do you have a system that helps you to identify paid and non-paid, or is purely based on the patient's will?
Purely based on the patient's will. Purely based on that. And we recognize that there could be some element of exploitation. But honestly, we have seen that exploitation not kind of working both ways. Because quite often we'll find some patients in the paying side who should not have come to the paying side. Okay. Yeah, in the sense, so they have sold the cow or mortgaged something because they wanted to give the best to the mother. Okay. Yeah, so we find that also. So there is some exploitation, but I think overall, we really cannot have a mechanism by which we can do a filtering, because very soon it will become into a corrupt practices.
Okay, true. Yeah. All your staff, the next question by Stalin, all your staff have smiling faces, having a lot of patience. maintaining equality to all kinds of patients? How do you manage that they're in this kind of status? What is the spiritual process behind, Aravind?
We don't have any overt spiritual practices. So even though the founders and many of us have draw a lot of energy from that source, but then nothing overt. We do have a meditation room, but that's all optional for anyone to go in. And in terms of having the staff perform in a cheerful manner, which I should thank for the observation, is to a great extent we're also staff-centric. We have 7 pillars that we define as Aravind way, and one of the pillars is being staff-centric. So when you have a staff who is working, and you have made sure the staff is well trained to do that work. That is, they have the competence to do what they're supposed to do. Second, you have made sure that they have all the tools of the trade required to do that work. So they're not handicapped, they're not kind of frustrated by not having something. If something is not there, it will be very quickly fixed. The response time for any challenges is quite quick. And the third one is that they know that if they have a problem, they can approach someone.
Okay.
So when you create this kind of ecosystem, I think most employees would feel happy working.
Thank you. The next part is that is Aravind is engaged in research and development in the eye care side, both on the treatment and on the diseases side? If so, some idea.
Yes. So we are quite heavily evidence-based organization. So a lot of the evidence was not published in the early days because they were all brought in for process improvements. But our model itself, like for example, the move into vision centers came out of a research, which showed the limitations of outreach. So that way, there was a lot of research done on the delivery side in the early days. So in terms of publications, not too many. About 15 years back, or maybe close to 20 years back, we recognized that as having the largest pool of patients anywhere in the world. We recognized that we had a moral responsibility to also learn from it for the broader good. So we got into basic research. In fact, Abdul Kalam, who became a very close friend after his first encounter in the free hospital, came and laid the foundation stone. And when he laid the foundation stone, he said, I often lay foundation stones and then nothing happens. And he said, I'll come back 1 year later and I will open the building, which he did. That was for basic research. So we do a lot of work on stem cells and that kind of fundamental research as well, and a lot of clinical research also. So today we publish, like last year we published 160 articles in peer-reviewed journals. Wow. And this year the number may be around 250, 240, something like that. So compared to our size, we should be doing a lot more. I'm comparing, say, for example, to Johns Hopkins, which probably does 10% of our work, but they probably publish 5 times more than what we do. So we are not in that level as a research organization, but that's part of the aspiration. So we're trying to get every ophthalmologist to publish 1 or 2 papers a year. So we are building this whole research ecosystem, investing quite a bit on that. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Then someone is asking he has mentioned 5, a few valuable ideas or important things for young entrepreneurs. I think I'll expand that question a bit. I think many of the participants are all in their 20s and 30s. Many of them, in fact, many of them I know them personally. From a point of view, a cushy monthly salary earning executive like me, their path seems to be very not yet charted out. And what are the few lessons these social entrepreneurs you think should hold with them in their path?
So I would say at a very broad level, I think perseverance as a quality becomes very critical. Because I think life's path in general is up and down. And for entrepreneur, it is much more accentuated in terms of success and failures. So I think perseverance is, I think, very critical. And then also clarity on the purpose and goal. And sort of recognize that in the long run, the means matter as much as the outcome. So taking shortcuts doesn't really help in the long run. And we have seen, I think a lot of the failures are stem out of compromising on the means. But these are at a little bit at a philosophical level. Otherwise, I think in a broad sense, I think they will need to focus on two sides of the equation. Because any enterprise is trying to provide something, supply something to a certain customer. So working on the demand side and on the supply side, it's a very challenging task to maintain arrive at the right balance and in the sync. Because you come to a certain stage and you want to appoint a marketing director, that guy's salary ask may be more than your entire salary budget, and you don't have the market yet. So how do you? So you really face these kind of challenges as you go along. So I think figuring out in a very innovative way to develop, because you need to build the organization which can grow the market, which can serve the market. Both have to be grown in as much in sync as possible. Otherwise, too many organizations go under because they couldn't meet the demand, or they just didn't have the demand. So I think very broadly this would be the. So in Aravind, in some case, we're very fortunate because the founding team was a group of very good doctors. So we had the supply side pretty much covered. And they're all willing to work for nothing because they're all part of the family. So, which was a huge blessing that we had. So maybe one part, maybe two, is to kind of figure out that part of the equation, which I think most entrepreneurs do. If you take Steve Jobs to whoever, in the early days, they had a group of people who would live on nothing, and produce stuff. So they got the supply side covered. So anyway, I'm just rambling on now. Yeah.
No, I think that point is very valid. It's very important because a family or a close-knit group's emotional tying together helps to tide over the adversity. The other question which we wanted to ask is, even today, Aravind is probably Tamil Nadu centric or South centric. Aravind has plans to go take this into pan-India. It is not purely from a commercial point of view. I think there exists a much grave or much real need in the central and north Indian states. What is your view on that?
So we have taken this stand saying that we don't want to become the Google, Microsoft, or Starbucks of the world, in the sense we need to own everything. So what we have kind of not in writing, almost in writing, but is that we will grow organically. Organically in the sense, it was first Madurai. Then we had a lot of patients coming from Theni because one of our founders was from that area. A lot of patients were coming. So we opened a branch there. We all come from Tirunelveli district. So a lot of our people are coming all the way to Madurai. So we opened a hospital in Tirunelveli. Then because of some other reason, we had a lot of patients coming from Coimbatore. So we were kind of opening hospitals from where the patients are coming, mainly to mitigate the effort and the inconvenience the patient would have to travel all the way to a different hospital. So in that fashion, we kept kind of opening more and more hospitals, Pondicherry and then Chennai. And the most recent one was in Tirupati, which is outside of Tamil Nadu. That is because for the last 10 odd years, we've been getting every day about 150 patients coming all the way from the border districts of Andhra, Nellore, Chittor, Tirupati, that area, and about 50 surgeries each day. Now 16,000 surgeries in a year. So for a long time, we had been trying to get a land there, and because we don't generate any black money, buying land in Andhra was quite a challenge till the Devasthanam offered some land on long lease. So we've opened a hospital there. So who knows? I think over time we might do that. But having said that, we recognize the need for better eye care in not only the rest of India, in other parts of the world. That is where we invested in a separate institute. Now it's a 50,000 square foot institute with staffing and significant costs, wherein we said that we will mentor other eye hospitals and bring them to similar standard. And that we have done in a number of places, number of hospitals we have done that both within India and amongst that cohort, there are about half a dozen hospitals which are now become like Aravind. No? So they are mentoring other hospitals. So that is the kind of multiplier effect we want to have rather than us doing everything.
Everything. That's wonderful, sir. There's a question from a student. You had said that Dr. V had a divine calling that guided him. Could you give us some examples of that if you have witnessed firsthand, which goes beyond the standard management realm into a miracle realm?
One thing, I mean, Dr. B would take some very big risks. No, like even setting up hospitals in Coimbatore or whatever when we didn't have money, staff, or anything. No, and really putting the whole organization into risk. But then over time, we have realized that his intuition or his decision always proved to be correct. No, and whether it's because of making it work, perseverance, or otherwise, we don't know. So I personally have pushed Dr. V several times, asking him, how do you make these decisions? And beyond a certain point, you would say, it is really not my decision. No, and in fact, if you talk to him, he would often mention that you get ideas, no, and sometimes you believe it's your ideas. And he says, and he's very strongly believed we are all vehicles of a divine force, and ideas that come into our head, which we think is our ideas, is the divine way of working through us. No, and he very strongly and very genuinely believed in it. And I believe that's the way maybe the divine worked through him.
Thank you. There is a question from a student of architecture. He says, thank you. I feel very inspired by your talk. If there is something in terms of infrastructure that is the dire need of Aravind to perform better, what would it be?
So in a service delivery system, I think the infrastructure plays a very integral role in everything, in efficiency and quality and things like that. So over time, we have been recognizing and learning from it. In fact, we work with a particular architect in Pondicherry, who for the last 3 decades has been working with us. I mean, he was a general architect, but over time he has become not only an hospital architect, but an eye hospital architect, recognizing advances and all that. So it is on a constant basis making sure that the architecture works with the demands of the flow. That's a constant thing. So only wish in that could be because the building and facilities tend to be a lot more set in stone, literally. So the flexibility is not so easy. So maybe a design which is a lot more light and dynamic, if such a thing is possible in architecture, so that as the demands of the patients and the flow and the technology changes, the building also can morph, without too much effort. I mean, this may be a very wishful dream, but I'm sure the architects will figure out.
Another question is on the personal side. Can you tell what moved you to join Aravind for 25% of your salary?
As I
What you are
told you,
drawing?
so it was completely powered by ignorance. I really didn't know what I was getting into, but I did know that with the 25% salary, I could survive. No, so that time the work seemed very interesting. And then I applied the reverse logic, because when you're in Calcutta in a corporate world with Dollygunge club membership and all that, end of the month you're looking for first of the month for the paycheck. You really have no things. And I knew that in Madurai that would be the same case. So in some sense there was no difference on salary. So I really applied the reverse logic when I made that decision. But like I truly said, I think I joined Aravind in my late 20s. So at that age, we were a little more adventurous. So all those things helped. Yeah.
Probably will request Mr. Uday. I think he also wants to come about Aravind, I guess. Uday? Oh, Kaushik's audio is not working. Okay, Uday, can you hear us? No, it's not working. Sir, I think we are almost come to the end of almost close to the time we have planned also. I would personally think that I think the role of Aravind in redefining the healthcare management as a whole, I think we could see three things: an inspiration, an institution, and process. I think all three have worked, I think, very finely at contributing equally to the success of what we could see inclusive healthcare. Yes, Uday?
Am I audible?
Yes, Uday. Yeah, you can say.
Sorry for that question. Someone is asking, how your employees are having the smiling face, maintaining the attitude.
Yes.
Being employee, I think I can also answer that part. Quite a bit is covered by Mr. Thulasiraj also. So, but being a provider, he can give his inputs, which is fairly true. As an add-on to that, I want to say, being an employee, so the orientation plays a major role. So the recruitment part, they are selecting the right candidates with right attitude, and there is a belief that you cannot teach attitude, but you can teach knowledge. So that's what Aravind believes. So they select people with right attitude. And the second part is that orientation. So in that orientation itself, the organization puts in front that what it focuses more. So the values as well as the patient care aspect. So that is the forefront. So which is taken by us. And the third thing is, I know and I believe and I also practice that Aravind is not cheating anyone in the sense, the patients as well as the staff. Okay, so I'm seeing that in front. So it maintains the transparency. So I practice whatever the way I wish to, or I don't want to cheat anyone just for the organization's sake, because the organization is not doing that. So that also helps motivates me. And the fourth thing is, I don't take any stress back to my home. So whatever stress I feel in the work is, I leave that at 6 o'clock. So when I go back to home, I have my own personal time. I don't want to think about the organization and other things. So I rejuvenate myself by having some personal time with my family and other things. And the organization also supports that and encourages that. And as Mr. Thulasiraj pointed out, I was oriented clearly that what I'm doing. Okay, so instead of teaching what you should do, they also teach me why you are doing this. Okay, if I know that why part, I don't miss anything. I know why it is important to the patients. Okay, and as mentioned by him again, so Aravind is always focusing on the patient's cost. Okay, so it doesn't teach us what hospitals cost or what the organizations cost. It always thinks about the patient's cost, the customer's cost. So whatever they are doing or whatever we are practicing, They always put the patient's friend. Okay, even at the first day in the orientation, they asked me a question: who is your boss? I immediately answered Mr. Thulasiraj. Then again they said, why you name him as a boss? I said, he is paying me salary and he is giving us orders. Then the question again repeated: who is paying Mr. Thulasiraj then? So now they really want me to think that it is the patients who is actually paying for everyone. So the patients are the real boss. So we have to treat them in a better way. So whatever the management, they are just intermediate. Okay. Ultimately, who is paying us? We want to serve them better and we want to make them happy. So how we treat our boss, we have to treat in a similar way our patients also. So that's what. So most of the thing is the value part and the orientation. So that's what from my side, being an employee. Hope that gives you some.
Yeah, that is wonderful. It is very important. It reinforces the other perspective given by Mr. Thulasiraj. Sir, I have there's one more question before we conclude. A question from someone: has Dr. V's dream has been attained? That's where the question stops. Mr. Thulasiraj? Yeah, has the dream of Dr. V has been attained actually, is the question.
Yeah. So I had some glitch here, so I lost the last 2-3 minutes.
Yeah, but has Dr. V's dream has been actually reached, is the question, sir.
We would like to think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, because since his passing away, we have continued his path, probably more than doubled where he left. Yeah. So yeah, so we feel good that we have continued his legacy. Yeah.
Wonderful. And thank you so much, sir. I think your concluding words. I think we have almost come to the end of the program.
Yeah, but my concluding words. As I mentioned in the beginning, I think it's been a wonderful opportunity to reflect upon our own work, and then to also recognize that when you're working on something which is beyond yourself, and then if you can build an organization that can do it, I think I think magic happens. So
that's correct.
Yeah, so in some way we feel blessed that we're all part of having this opportunity, and wish the same for everyone listening on this talk.
I think that will be a great inspiration, sir, because most of them felt, I've been speaking to them. I only told them I've seen a few research papers, videos, and articles. But I think it is very, very great fortune for all of us to see and hear from you directly. I think many of our young friends will get inspiration out of this experiment. I'm sure they will all be traveling in a path like our mentors and leaders like Dr. V and you have led us to believe that this is all possible. Thank you so much for your message.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah.
Surayamude kannamma தூய சுடர்வானொளியே சூரயமுதே கண்ணம்மா